Hey everyone, thanks for dropping by. And if you're new, I'm your host, Jonah. Welcome to the Blue Collar Enlightenment Show, where we learn new things every episode through conversations with guests from all around the globe. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can keep up with the journey. Enjoy the episode. Ransom, welcome to the podcast. I appreciate you coming on. How are you doing, man?
You know, it's a day, but life is good. Definitely thankful for all the good things despite the craziness of post St. Patrick's Day cuisine that we're cooking right now.
Oh, the peace among chaos is always a sweet bliss.
When you can grab
it. So tell the listeners just a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So I am a writer primarily. I live in Los Angeles, actually, just to the northeast of downtown, and came out here for the film business. So I did grad school, actually, got my master's in screenwriting, and was doing that hustle and working a day job and I'm still working the hustle, but I was working that day job for about 8 years. And then that ended, and I kind of went part-time, went freelance, found a lot of different things to do to keep the lights on. And then when the lockdowns out here got so intense, it kind of hit me that I needed to find a way to be generative and creative that didn't depend on waiting on someone else to kind of take what I'd made and actually produce it, right? So with screenplays, most of the ones that you write are not going to be produced because you're trying to hone your skill and get to the point where your craft is good enough that people will sit up and take notice, at least of your writing. But whether they'll produce it or not is kind of a long shot. So I've, everything that I've written except for one, which was a rewrite that was almost in production, hasn't been produced. So kind of with that background and then the lockdowns making everything feel like the walls were closing in, I'm like, I just need to do something creative. And so I kind of looked within myself, and at the time I was listening to a lot of podcasts and kind of rediscovering my musical heritage. Like I love music. I've been a musician since I was young, and I've always loved the blues rock, and that kind of music. And as I was thinking of the kind of podcast that I wanted to do, it just kind of started coalescing, sort of like an out of focus picture. Like, okay, I knew it kind of wanted to be just me talking. I wanted there to be music, and then it should be blues music, and then kind of this Western kind of ambiance feel came into view. And then I just started brainstorming names, and eventually landed on Ramblings of a Revenant Alien. Like it kind of captured everything, and it also points toward my worldview and like my philosophy, my spirituality, but it's like a big tent. It allows room for all kinds of people to come in and talk. I don't know if you've listened to my interviews. I have plenty of people on that are not of my persuasion, and it's great to have those conversations. So while I'm still writing, and I'm actually doing branching out into, I just got a novel ghostwriting gig. Hopefully be more of those. That was fun. And then I do something called audio description, which is audio closed captions for the visually impaired. So a narrator will describe the visuals if the sound is uncertain. So someone who can't see can watch a movie and still enjoy it. They have a lot of those on Netflix now where you can listen to that. And write the podcast, or at least kind of compose it and then riff, at least in its current iteration. And I am a husband and father of 3, living out here in Los Angeles, making it work, which is always interesting. So it's kind of the high points.
Coming up with episode, what are the inspirations that you have? Because I know I listen to your podcast, and you do really well at breaking up the segments and making sure that your listeners are able to soak in what you just said. It's really a beautiful thing, really. So where do you come up with your episodes?
They kind of come to me, they bubble up in my mind, whether it's usually when I'm alone. Everybody talks about how they get ideas in the shower. Me, not so much, because I have nothing to write with. So I try not to do that. But I'll just be kind of in a frame of mind. I'll be thinking about something. I'll see something on the news, or I'm just kind of, sinking into an emotion, and it just bubbles into a thought, which bubbles into words. I think it's just my writer's brain. For instance, like right now, one of the older members of our family is kind of on his last legs. He'll be passing on soon, and that puts me in a really reflective mood. So there'll be times where I'll be reflecting on that and think about life and death, and just phrases will come into my mind, and I just write them down in my little notebook and say that's a good kind of jumping off point, because every one of the thoughts that I get is sort of like a movie line. Honestly, it's a lot of subtext packed into very few words. And so I know that there's kind of more to say about it if I just kind of let that thought run. So honestly, they just come to me. It's outward stimuli. So it's kind of fun how, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It's fun how random it can be. Is what I was going to say. Certain days will be thinking about one thing, and then all of a sudden get something from the complete opposite end of the spectrum, just like the strangeness of life or the strangeness of the city that I live in. And oddly, so I'll kind of stack them up in this little notebook. And as soon as I hit 7, I don't know, for those of you that like listen in detail, it's usually 7 segments, or it's always 7 segments, which was kind of a random thing. The first episode I did, it had 7 thoughts plus a title sequence or a title segment. And I kind of like that, 7 plus 1, and then the open close and the little kind of cold open at the top. And as soon as I get to 7, I kind of look over those thoughts and see if there's anything that kind of ties them together. And without fail, there is. Previously, that's the way it's working right now. In the first season, I would think of the area I wanted to talk about, like what the title of the episode would be. And then I would just literally sit there and think and just write each segment, kind of like, what are some things I could say about this topic, and kind of just let the mind go where it would, and then type it out and read it. But I ran out of time to do that for this season. So just kind of letting my improv mind take over. And I'm really interested and pleased with the results. Like, it's fun when you, I don't know if you've ever taken improv classes or have talked to anyone who has, but there's a way to let your brain filters kind of down a little bit and just follow them where they take you. And like all the subconscious stuff that once it comes out of your mouth or once it comes into your conscious mind, you're like, that's really insightful. It's just not floating up at the surface. You just kind of have to sit back and let it rise. And that's how I create my segments. They're a long, people can probably tell, like I have to chop out quite a few pauses, but I'm getting better at, if I pause in the middle of a sentence, just leaving the silence there and picking right back up where I paused in that sentence. So the podcast medium really lends itself to that, being able to kind of shorten it up and making it more pleasant for the listener to listen to. They don't have to listen to you think. They can just listen to your thoughts. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. There's definitely a lot of editing within podcasting, and people don't understand how much work behind the scenes it is until they dive into it, and they're like, "Oh my goodness!" Like, I'm working with this one friend of mine, and she would do videos, but she didn't know how to edit them together and things like that, and how to enhance sound and things of that nature. And so I started diving in with her because she wanted to put all her audio out. And I was like, well, this is a whole other side of things. And she was just astounding how much there is within being an independent podcaster. Mm-hmm. And so how do you go about marketing your podcast? Because there's so many different ways of doing it.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't right now. That's kind of, I like to, people have asked me, I'm doing it completely wrong, or rather kind of backing into it. So it was most important to me when I started out to just get it done, to prove to myself that I could do it, that I could stick to a schedule, that I could create everything I wanted to create, even though it wouldn't be to the level I wanted it yet. I knew that like my music wouldn't be as good, the audio wouldn't be as good. And I've been learning a lot about how to make all those things better, even though I haven't been able to upgrade the music yet. But this year is kind of my look into marketing year. So my show is a little unique in that while I do have interview episodes, about every other week, I have the kind of, ramble episodes is the kind of the spine of the show. And it's funny. I was on Spotify and I searched for, shows like mine. Because I found I came in as like a third party, searched my show, and then shows like this, and there were no search results. Like, okay, so my show is unlike any other show. That's good, but then it's also like, well, how do you market that? How do you find the people that are going to dig the format, dig the presentation, dig me? Because that all kind of has to go together. So I'm actually just talking to this marketing firm that found me on Instagram, and looking at the different things that they offer. And, they offer these packages where you can buy listens, like they'll guarantee a certain amount of listens. Guarantee a certain amount of listens. But I was going back and forth to them and thinking, I think the most important thing for me is to find out which listeners would enjoy the podcast and, be faithful subscribers and share it. And so I kind of told them, I think that's probably going to require a little bit of analysis on your part. Like, listen to the show, listen to what I do, maybe ask me some questions. And then they actually have something that they sell called a marketing plan, where they tell you how they would market your show or what they think is the best way to market your show. So I'm kind of waiting to pull the trigger on that. It's not really expensive, but it is, a kind of a commitment of cost to be like, all right, I want to pay for that. And if I get nothing out of it, I'm okay with it. I'm not quite there yet, but the only organic marketing I do is just sharing my episodes and hoping that people like them, and then hoping that people share them. So I'll be interested to, once I finally do pull the trigger on trying to engage some help marketing, because I either have time to do the podcast or market the podcast, not both. I'll be interested to see how much that helps, and then who it draws in, and what they find out about kind of my ideal listener. Spotify is always giving you those articles saying you need to find this profile of your ideal listener, and I really don't know what that is. So,
yeah, I was talking to my dad earlier, and he was telling me how he sold my show to somebody, and the way he did it, I was like, Dad, that was the worst sales pitch I've ever heard. And I had to tell him, I'm like, this is what you need to tell people about my show. And we get so caught up in what is the true meaning of what we're doing that we just got to think, what was the true meaning? And that's how you got to sell it. And, I was telling him, I'm like,
and you got to tell people accurately. Oh.
Yeah. And I was like, this is what you got to tell them, Dad. I'm like, I mean, if you're going to sell my show, you got to tell people the real show, not just a blanket version of it.
You don't want people to get there and realize this wasn't what I was promised.
Yeah. I'm like, oh man. Within your editing, we were talking about a little bit about editing in your music. Do you ever cut yourself out of a long ramble and just shorten it up, or kind of do you just piece together what's good?
Definitely the latter. I'll take whatever I've said, which again, I think I'm very thankful that it kind of runs in my blood, the ability to just think out loud and make it melodious and at least a little bit compelling. I'm able to just cinch up all the gaps, and every now and again, I got to stop and say something again because I've messed up the pronunciation, or I've had a really loud mouth noise. Man, my mouth is so noisy, it's the worst. But so I'll go in between all those things, and a lot of times I'm pasting just blank space over those mouth noises so that the listener doesn't have to hear those. And I will, from time to time, like I actually just did it this morning, I cut out a segment where I was like, there's a ramble, and then there's like a, wow, that really doesn't make any sense. Or it just does, it's so not necessary. Like, that was just like a little triple axle for no reason, which I think is distracting. So I'll cut that out here and there, but not too much. It's rare. And I don't think it's happened yet where I'll listen to an entire section and be like, wow, none of that works. Cause I guess my mind and the thoughts that I have just work together. And then when I kind of say them out loud, I force myself to sort of, I guess it's almost like musical improv. You kind of are in a zone and you know what you're going for, the flavor you're going for, the thing that you want to say. And then you just kind of do what comes in your mind and try to make it sound like it's at least moving and lilting and going back and forth and then ends on some kind of thought. Because like you said, I have sections and I like to end each section with some sort of natural break where it doesn't feel like I just kind of trail off and we like fade down on the mic, you know?
Oh, yeah. It ends up, you're able to soak it in and really kind of have a little bit of a thought process before you move on to the next part. And it really at the end of the show, when you're done, you get to thinking about that. And, it kind of just skips to the next episode. So you got to press pause. And when I listen to your podcast, I will listen to an episode in the morning. I will hit pause, and by lunch, I haven't pressed play again. Because I'll be so deep in thought in what you said. I'll be like, well, what about, well, it's just, it gets you thinking because, we get so caught up in, what we're doing in the day that we don't think about other things. And so when we're going through our mundane motions, we usually have that back of mind thought process going on. And, at least I do, because my job, it's the same thing over and over and over and over again. And so there's not too much thought process for me. And so there's a back of mind thoughts going on.
Yeah.
And so when I get to hearing intellectual thoughts and stuff like that, I get to thinking hard. And I listen to a lot of those podcasts. And sometimes I will press pause and I will reflect on that the rest of the day.
I'm glad, man. I'm glad.
Yeah, it's crazy how some things that you get tied on to, you're like, well, crap, no, I got to think about that all the way through and come to a conclusion. Like I was just listening to, what was it the other day that really hit me? The Black Sheep episode that you did.
Oh, yeah. I love that one.
And that got me thinking. And so I thought about that all day of, having that feeling myself and getting through it. It was an interesting episode, an interesting process for me to go through afterwards. Definitely.
I'm really glad, dude. Yeah, I think so many people feel that way. I went to this really interesting high school that was a magnet school. It was a science and tech school in Northern Virginia. And that was my experience, that all the coolest people I knew were these outsiders. Here's what's funny, since it was like, it was a school full of nerds, basically. Even the football players, like of which I was one, like were really academic people. But I just got the sense everyone was there trying to find their place. And as you got to know them, you got to know such a cool hidden person that you really enjoyed. And you thought to yourself, how come nobody else seems to be appreciating this person the way that I do? Right. And that was one of the things that inspired that episode, just to kind of like, I think I say it in there as like, for Black Sheep, this is for you. Like, I love you guys. In fact, I am one myself. And I think to some degree, every human being, due to the way we're separated from each other, like we're not telepathic, in other words, we are sort of in our own heads, in our own, exile in a way. And so there's a sense in which we all kind of have to have this attitude of, let's try to cross the distance between each other as best we can. Because on some level, we all feel like outcasts. And that's a thing that should unify us, right? Which is what the episode's about. So I'm really glad, man. I'm glad hope that was at least encouraging to you. It can be kind of a downer to meditate on sometimes, to think about loneliness. But, when you think about it, I guess it spurs you to try to help someone else not be lonely, which helps with your own loneliness.
Yeah, I think that if we can harness the feeling of loneliness, we can truly believe how strong we are. Because to be lonely, I mean, you're entertaining yourself all the way to, you get deep when you get lonely. And that's a strength that you should be able to carry on with you, because there's times where you're not going to be lonely, when you're going to have somebody there to talk to, and you can utilize that to make yourself better. This is what I think, because I've been through lonely times for sure. Especially while I was in the military, there was nobody I knew there. There was nobody, I knew the people around me, but there was no like true interaction outside of that. Nobody was really a true friend because you were not going to see them 4 years later, 3 years later, because everybody's transferring, going other places. And it can be very lonely having that thought of a friend that just left is around the world. You're not going to see them maybe for years on end. And so that is a sinking feeling. But I think it could better you in the long run.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's funny. I grew up around a lot of military families and, watched them have to experience that moving on and the difficulty it was in basically having to pull up roots because you knew you were going to leave. And I couldn't agree more, dude. Like, you learn kind of to make moments meaningful while you have them. Even though that is a difficult life to have to move and to watch your friends be stationed elsewhere and know they're going to be gone while you're on this planet. But hopefully it can help you, appreciate the people that you have while you have them and seek some kind of stability, at least in your own mind. Oh.
Yeah, for sure. And today technology has made it easier to where all you got to really do is, hey, FaceTime you.
Yeah, man.
I mean,
yeah, dude, that's true. Actually, one of my friends, yeah.
I'm able to connect with people all the way over in Britain, all the way down in Australia, Germany, all over the place. It's insane. Loneliness should be like one of the least feeling that we should have these days because it's so easy to connect with people.
This is true. Although I gotta say, right, and I don't know how it was for you in Oklahoma, but man, it was lonely out here during the lockdowns, even though there was so much Zoom. I think though that was, that may have been less about not being able to actually interact with anybody than the feeling of kind of grief of watching your kids have to do school at home, like knowing they were missing out on a really pivotal classroom experience. Just, don't want to argue about the politics of it, but everyone can understand like that's hard for a kid to do. And all three of our kids dealt with it in different ways, had their different kind of struggles with it. And they soldiered on, man. Kids are resilient. But yeah, I definitely like the in-person when I can do it. But I'm really thankful for this technology, man. Right? Otherwise we'd never get to chat, right? What are the chances?
Oh yeah, we've never met if it wasn't for, Twitter, and being able to follow people and see, Twitter's become a podcast, platform pretty much, all the Twitter spaces and everything like that. And I did see my kids go through that. Fortunately, COVID didn't affect me career-wise because I was technically an essential worker because I work within the fire protection business and having service calls was essential. And of course, when I would go into these nursing homes, I would be head to toe like it's almost like a hazmat suit, man. If I dig up a picture, I would send it to you. But I would have mask on, shield on, glasses on, hairnet over my hat, and then a full body suit just to walk through the hallway, up a ladder and into an attic, and then strip it straight off. Oh man. The process that I had to do during the pandemic, it definitely slowed you down, but I was fortunate enough to be able to keep my career going and have a steady income during, I know a lot of people weren't as fortunate that way, but yeah. But I agree with you with the kids having to sit through Zoom meetings, because even sitting through class, I remember me sitting through class, just falling asleep, just sitting there, just nodding off. Yeah. Just imagine sitting through a Zoom and then that teacher having to look at every screen, seeing who's nodding off. And I believe there's a lot of kids that
first of all,
go ahead.
I was saying, first of all, kudos to the teachers, man. Like my youngest daughter was in kindergarten. Right? Was it TK? It was kindergarten. They have an extra year out here in California called transitional kindergarten if your birthday falls on a certain day. Anyway, the youngest was in kindergarten, and that teacher, she was just as bubbly and just as happy and just as like on it with a Zoom classroom full of kindergartners as I've ever seen anyone. So I was blown away, as you know, that was one of the bright spots, just watching our youngest be engaged. Like you could tell in her eyes that she was hooked by whatever that teacher was doing. It's unbelievable.
It's great to see when teachers are passionate about what they're doing, and there are those few bad eggs, just like any other person, any other thing out there that are not passionate about what they do, and they don't get the kids excited for what they're doing. And
yeah, man.
I believe, just as a father, you know this, that you have to be lit in everything you do to keep that energy up, just to make them happy.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
You can't go out there all mopey dopey. You gotta be happy and go lucky for them kids, or it ain't working.
Yeah, it's really interesting too. What I've realized is, teachers really get no slack when it comes to like letting their personal life come into the classroom, right? Parents, we can't help it. Like our kids are going to tell when we're angry. They're going to tell when we're upset or impatient, because it inevitably, bleeds over into how we act around them or even treat them. And everyone kind of accepts that because like it's life, right? You're living with your family, but man, when a teacher lets that happen, it just seems so inappropriate. I'm like, oh, that's really not fair, right? They're people too. But I guess that's just one more level of respect you can have for teachers who they really do kind of keep their personal lives out of it, because it really is not about them in the classroom. It's about the kids. So again, props to teachers. We have I don't know what, as you said, this will come out in a little bit, but right now we're kind of facing one of our school districts is going to have a strike for the new wages. And it's over 100,000 kids that are going to miss school for a few days. And it's like, man, that just is a good reminder of like, yeah, teachers are essential. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Completely.
Should make quite a bit more than they do.
I'm all for paying them more, but let's make sure we're teaching kids in the classroom and we're not forcing taking these strikes into the classroom with the kids. They don't need to see that stuff. They just need to know they're there to learn. That's it.
Yeah, man. I know. Right. That's a fraught subject, right, man?
It's such an interesting thing. It's like, why would we fight the teachers to give them more when they're, they have to deal with our kids, multiple of them on top of that for multiple hours a day.
Yeah,
have you ever had a birthday party? I mean, look at a birthday party. Can you control that chaos? No, you can't. So I think we should give the teachers, a good livable wage. I know they have 3 months off, but that other time they're dealing
they can get more out of that.
It's pretty much we're paying them to babysit, so let's pay them to babysit. I mean,
babysit and invest and teach. And my goodness, right? Out here in LA, there's a lot of live-in nannies, or at least full-time nannies, and they get really good paychecks, as well they should, right? Like considering what they're contributing to a family that may need that extra help. So it's frustrating, I'm sure, for teachers to see that and be like, I'm working at the same level to a degree, because what they do with their classrooms and the environments that they create are astounding, right? I don't know if you've been to your kids' classrooms, but the ones at the school my kids go to they are like, the walls are covered with learning aids and visual things that are interesting. And it's just like, man, how long does that take to research and then set up and then maintain and then refresh? It's like, my goodness. That's why I'm not a teacher. I just don't think I could ever do that.
I know I wouldn't have the patience. I was sitting I actually had to do 2 in one day. They had to bring your parent to school day, and they did a movie. Walked into one, and I didn't even watch the movie. My daughter was sitting there, and we were eating. I was just paying attention to reading everything on the walls. I'm like, what is going on here? And I'm thinking, is this good or bad for the kids? Because while that teacher's up there talking, I bet the kids are doing the same thing. Like, oh, I can do the ABCs over here, and not even paying attention because I'm not even looking. I'm doing my 1, 2, 3s off over here and reading 3 plus 3. Oh, overstimulation sometimes is a bad thing, maybe.
Yeah, I guess maybe the teacher's like, well, it's all going to work together because what is it? Science says that if you're talking to somebody, they zone out technically around every 6 seconds. So it's like, all right, at least if they zone out, they'll have something that can be feeding their brain. I don't know.
Oh, Lord, we're getting off on a little tangent, but I guess that's kind of what you're about. And what I'm about is diving down rabbit holes.
Yes, sir.
So what does the future look like?
Well, I do want to get better at everything. So right now I use recordings that I put together in the first year of doing it, which are, I've gotten quite a bit better at guitar since I've finished the last one. And I really want to upgrade those. Like I'm really pushing myself to practice hard so that all that interstitial music by next year is my goal. When I have my 2nd year anniversary next January, the goal is to have all the music redone, much closer to what my mind imagines it could be based on listening to like the best players in the world, right? That's the funny thing. These days we can listen to the best players in the world and compare ourselves to them, which isn't really fair. But still, I know there's quite a bit of room I have for improvement. So I want to do that, renew all that music, continue to get better at just riffing and rambling and making it coherent. It's almost like a public speaking course for myself, just turn something off here. Keeps trying to use my headphones as a mic. Anyway, there's Toastmasters and there's other public speaking groups that you can do. And it really is just about repetition. So to continue to kind of grease the skids of my mind, to have these thoughts and then to be able to ramble / riff on the thoughts in the way that's engaging and compelling. And so that both segments of the show are kind of as keyed up and sharpened as they can be, so that when someone comes to it, they can be excited about the music they're going to hear and the thoughts they're going to hear. And if it's their thing, again, I want to try to draw in the people where that's what they really enjoy, is like soaking in the thoughts, listening to the music. I tell you what would be amazing is if I could, I did this with one episode. There's so many blues musicians on Instagram, but I connected with one and he allowed me to use one of his tracks just for that episode. To let someone hear music other than mine. So I would be absolutely thrilled if
listening to that one.
Both, what I created. Dude, cornucopia, Thanksgiving. Like to find other blues musicians who love the genre as much as I do, and they're doing amazing work, right? Like I'm just one guy. Even if I, hit the heights of what I can achieve with my fingers and my skill, there's a myriad of other amazing musicians out there whose music would be just so incredible in between the words. So, but that's, it's a multi-step process. They have to like the show. They have to like me. Depending on how much I've grown, they may need some compensation, obviously. And I would want to do that to pay people what their music is worth, at least kind of in the format that it's in. And that'll depend on where I'm at and what, if there's advertisers involved. I don't even know, but that's like a, blue sky dream to pull in musicians and even other, I don't know, guest ramblers, I guess. I do have the Ramble Room episodes, but it would be fun someday to do like people like yourself and other fun shows that are out there. Just, hey, you just want to record a section? Just record a ramble, right? And so we'll layer it in between me, or hopefully I could open it and it could be like 7 guest ramblers. That would be amazing. But I'm just kind of really following where it's going to go. And so, like I said, this year was about kind of being more genuinely myself, turning the Western accent down to a more natural level, and then getting better with the music, practicing, continuing to produce the podcast so that I keep getting better while practicing the music. And then later this year, summer and the fall, to really like go hard and try to re-record some things and add some more instrumentation and have it be what I dreamed that it could be when I started, but just didn't have the wherewithal to do. So I hope for it to be kind of a perennial part of my life because it really just brings me a lot of joy. And it makes me feel like I'm contributing even on those times where you feel like you're just, one voice out in the middle of the a limbo, and no one knows who you are or where you are. It's an amazing world we live in where you can actually like, no, you can produce something, make it concrete, and put it out there, and it will live forever on the internet. It's bracing, I'll say, even though sometimes you don't get as many listens as you want, or most of the time, right? But it's out there, and you finished it, and you did it.
Yeah. In the beginning, do you remember that feeling of hitting publish, and you were like, I don't know.
Yeah, man.
And then finally just telling that inner self to shut the hell up and just do it. It's like, shut up, man.
What?
I'm doing it.
That's right. Click. I can't take it back. Well, and the nice thing for me was, and what I was learning at the time was that done is better than perfect. And if I waited to be as good as I wanted to be before I published it, I'm like, that's going to be another 3 years. And I can't wait that long. I can't wait any longer. I need to do it right now. And it's going to be a shaky start. And it's going to be, people are going to be able to go back and like season 3 and season 4, listen to the beginning and be like, man, that was rough. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Right. Like a lot of podcasts are that way.
And the ones that are diehard listeners that, that we've had since day one are going to see the transition of how good we've became over, so many hours of just between editing and production and all the way through. And they get to see your growth as well. And if they were interactive, hint, people out there, at the beginning, they become the favorites of the hosts.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Right, giveaways, swag, merch. That's a fun thing too. My logo, which you'll have people looking at right now. I kind of designed that myself because that's the elements that I wanted to have. I do eventually want to go to a graphic artist and maybe retool it. But it's pretty close to what I wanted it to be. And it was really fun when I finally finalized it. I'm like, man, that would look great on a hat or a t-shirt or a mug. Like, I'm really happy with that. So definitely swag someday. Hope to pass that out.
It's nice, simple to the point about what it's an alien hat and a cowboy hat. It's freaking sweet.
There you go, man.
Mine's a little more complex. Mine's a little more.
It's good though. I get it though.
Yeah. And you actually do different voices because at one time I was changing it. The transition that I've had, I'm still playing with things. I'm still doing changes within the show to try to make it different, to see what's going to really, pop. And so at one point, I was reaching out to people and say, hey, I want to do this new intro and I would like to have you involved. And you sent me a montage of voices that you did for me.
Yes. Yeah, man, that was fun.
So do you plan on bringing any of those voices out in one of the episodes?
I'll have to say that I try to, and I want to get better at this. Again, speaking of getting better, I want to get better at letting them come out just naturally during the rambles, because that's the way they come out in everyday life. Like I don't all of a sudden break into a character and do an entire monologue in that voice, but I will just kind of drop into something and say the words it's almost like I pick an accent based on how I want what I say to feel. And so for the rambles that I do, usually it's in my voice, but every now and again, it's just like a little character from Scotland or from, the deep South will just kind of pop out when I say something. I'm like, there, I'll just leave that in there. But yeah, I'm trying to, I haven't been as good at letting that come out during the rambles, because I'm usually feeling pretty reflective, and that can be hard to be funny. So I'm like, yeah, no, I definitely want to ratchet up the more humorous side of it, because if all I have are kind of my like deep melancholy thoughts while I'm alone, it's like, that's not necessarily building people up the way I want to. So
you could do a whole interview with yourself. Nobody'd even know.
I've thought about that, man. I thought about that. I was
you could do that hick accent and the British accent at the same time. It just go back and forth with yourself. Just warn people.
Yeah.
Just be like, hey, just let you know this is an argument amongst myself. Just two different people in my head. It just
I like that,
about
man.
That would be
fun.
that would be probably. I would laugh at that episode. That would be amazing. Yeah, if I could do
And you know
that,
what?
if I could do,
sorry.
yeah, if I could do different voices, I would do that on this show. I would just argue about a certain topic with myself. Nobody's get butthurt.
When it's funny,
that'd be awesome.
That's a good idea, dude. I've actually thought about, you asked about kind of what's in the future. Every now and again, I'll have this thought of like, you know what, I should do like a regular segment on the show. You know how, gosh, it's almost like something like SNL or a certain news show always has that particular thing. Like today it's time for our blah, blah, blah that we do all the time. And the different characters where I thought about that, like having all of a sudden a different voice come on and say something about something else, almost more like a variety show. And I'm like, yeah, that would be fun. That'd be fun. And that's where it stayed so far. That would be fun. I haven't pulled the trigger on that yet, but it's a good thought, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I've had people ask me, why haven't you done a monologue yet? And I'm like, no, you don't need it. You don't need to hear me rambling. I'll go off in 10 different tangents in the same paragraph. That's not a good thing for me. Oh, so I just got a few more questions for you. What has been the most enlightening moment of the journey you've taken so far?
Love that question. Honestly, it's been a continual realization that the results are the bonus. That if you're going to do something like create a podcast or create anything artistic or really even intentionally build a life, it has to be about what you're doing, the journey, for lack of a better term, that even if it doesn't yield the results that you might dream that it would, it has to be worth doing for you. Otherwise, I don't think you'd be wasting your time, but you certainly would not be able to enjoy the life that you're living that's right in front of you. Like, so even if I don't get the listens that I want, that's disappointing, but I'm not disappointed at what I've created. Like I like what I've created. I'm pleased that I created it. It brings me joy. It brings me meaning. And it's part of my mission for life to put out life and hope into the world. And so, you know this, I'm sure. And as a father and as a podcaster, like you go up and down. Some days you're really encouraged and some days you're really jazzed. And other times you look at your numbers and you're just like, why am I doing this? And then not just with podcasting, that's with everything, especially I can tell you, being a writer, even with the writing stuff, that the AD is constantly going out there, but only a certain select audience really needs it. And so it's sort of like, I'm the only one that knows that that's happening. I would much rather be writing screenplays that are being produced or being, finishing novels that could be out there. And so, while I know that my writing is making a difference and it's worth doing, I have those times where it just want to throw up my hands and be like, this is just not worth it. But I fight through those because I know, like in my heart, I know that the truth is, no, it is worth it, right? The journey is worth it. What you're creating, even if nobody else sees it on this earth, you see it and be like, I'm a man of faith. Like I know God sees it. And if he's given me this gift and talent and created me in a certain way to be able to create this light, even if there's only a handful of people that see it, well, it's light for them, right? And it maybe could be something they pass on. And that's why I always say that at the beginning of my show, like, I hope you find some light for your journey. And if so, hold it high and pass it on. Because, man, I tell you, I live in LA and I think it's true in every city, in every state, every part of the world. But so many people just feel like they're in the dark about what's happening to them. And what everything means. And, some people numb that. Other people use it to motivate them to search. Some people just kind of shrug and just try to keep living day to day. And what I have to give can help someone in that situation. And that's why it's worth doing. I think that's why I'm on earth. And so it's not just for the podcast. Everything I do, every day trying to live around people to have those important conversations like this one. And that's the lesson that, You have to believe in what you're doing, or rather, you have to push through and keep doing what you're doing for the sake of what you're doing, not believing that only the results matter. It's like almost like the medium is the message, right? The work is the result, right? Like what you create, even if it doesn't go as far as you want it to, that was worth it. And so, yeah, I try to encourage everybody to do that with something. All right. I think we need a mission to hang our lives on, and we always find one. And it's worth examining what that is, or trying to discover if you do have one, if you don't think that you do, you know?
I have a song that I am going to recommend to everybody. It's called Nothing to It. Okay. Just go to YouTube and put Ain't Nothing to It. You see a little dude in some sunglasses, pull him down. Just click on the song. Just listen to it. That will take you out of any imposter syndrome deep slump you've ever been in. I'll send it to you, Ransom, after this. It's all right, man. It'll get you going.
All right.
Don't pay attention
it's
too
funny,
much
man. I did
to
go
the
through
video. Don't pay too much to the video, but just pay attention to what it's saying. But it's a great motivating, and man. You know, we all of us go through that same feeling of the lows of why we're doing this. The numbers aren't there, blah blah. But we always have those highs. We're like, yes, something's happening. There it is. We're getting some traction, and then all of a sudden we drop off a cliff. And there's going to be those highs and lows and heartbreaks and what am I doing wrong? But we just got to remember what else are we going to be doing with our time? We started this for a reason. And so
it's to remember that you might not be doing anything wrong. That's the thing, right? You may be doing everything right. You're doing what you're supposed to do. You're doing it well. You're doing it with passion. And maybe you don't get the listens anyway. So it's like you can't look at the results for your validation, right? You have to have the validation that's deeper coming from somewhere else.
It's the algorithm.
That's right. Shh. It's listening now.
Yeah, it's gonna put us just back into the shelfie corner. Collect dust. No, that's why I tell people make sure to like and throw a comment down at the bottom of any of the episodes. It helps out with it. Yeah. So where can everybody find you social media wise? Where can they find your podcast?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. Search for @Revenant Alien, because I'm not the only one. That's the way I like to say it. And then I do occasionally, I was doing it more last year and run out of time this year, but I do occasionally write an article on Medium, same handle, @Revenant Alien. So you can I adapted some of the podcast segments into articles and then wrote some original ones. So if you enjoy the written word, you can check me out there on Medium. And then, mostly active on Twitter and Instagram whenever an episode comes out or whenever I have a thought. So, and then as always, if they want to, they can go to revenantalien.com/contact if they want to just send me an email directly. But I'm always watching all those channels. So wherever you find me, I'll be there, man. I'm around.
Yeah. And I'll make sure to put the link in the description. And that way everybody can just go down there and click that. And, And
when I'm on all the podcasting platforms like, Anchor, which is now Spotify for podcasters, has a great distribution network. So I'm on, I think it's 10 platforms automatically. And then if you can't find me, just go to the Spotify for podcasters link in the website, and then it has the RSS feed. If you have a player that you like that you can't find me on, it's easy to load it up. But
yeah, we're actually on a lot of platforms that we didn't even know we're on.
Right, somebody found you and plugged you in there.
Have you ever Googled your podcast and just scrolled down? It's like, what platform is this? Where did this come from? It's amazing. It's
you look at the analytics and you're like, yeah, in Vietnam.
Who the heck is podplayerplus.com?
Yeah, dude. It's like somebody trying to build their network, right? It's like, oh, here's a show. Just capture that RSS feed. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to go log on, claim your shows. So that's where we get lost. Is we don't
right.
When we don't claim shows on all these platforms, that's where we get lost in our numbers because we only get to see what our platform shows us. We got to remember that as well.
Hopefully we're getting much more. Yeah.
You could be getting traction somewhere in some other country. I got an email from an Australian Apple podcast analytics tracker person. He was like, your number blah 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 on our list in this certain country. It's crazy. I'm like, really? Because I get no numbers on that platform like at all. How it's interesting. How crap works.
Here's what's funny, dude. That's really funny. I was using a podcast app that I won't name because it's, I don't want to knock it because it's got a really good heart and I love what it's trying to do. But it once told me that I was in the top 100 podcasts in this X category. And I'm like, okay, I know what my numbers are. Now I'm less impressed with that list because if I'm there, then there may not be that many people. Then again, what do I know, right? Because there was a lot of numbers before number one, I'll tell you that. So maybe that number one is doing really well. I hope so.
I think I know who you're talking about. I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about. The guy got that same
probably
one,
get the same
and I was there for like 2 weeks, and then they dropped me out. I'm like, whoa! And then, I was like, what was that? And that was a time when I was getting like no listens, and even on that platform, I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't know nothing changed. Yeah, that's when I was on like a flat line. Nobody was listening to me at all. Man. Oh, it was crazy.
Yeah, it's weird.
Well, Ransom,
what a world.
I hope to bring you on in the future. We can have more of these conversations. We'll start wrapping it up here in a second. But yeah, I appreciate it coming on and sharing with me. And I hope one of these days we can have the face-to-face and do the full video interview. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, dude. Hopefully my brothers are out your way. So if I'm ever over there, maybe we can set it up. I can actually come and see your studio, It'd be awesome.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool. A face-to-face interview. That'd be really cool. I've been waiting on. I got a few people I've been waiting on. I'm gonna have to hit them up. They're actually local people, but
nice.
Yeah, I got a few people that are actually going to travel. That actually travel through here a lot. That are supposed to come by and see me.
Good, man. Good. I look forward to those episodes, dude. I was going to ask you how you find. You got such an eclectic mix of guests with such interesting, different life experiences. So if you're booking them or someone's helping you, that's doing a great job, man.
I have a network of people, and they're all great. They all send me different people, and it's amazing because I've opened up to a wide variety because I love highlighting the people doing things that we don't necessarily see every day. I take pride in that.
Exactly.
I finally have found the true direction of what the show is trying to tell me. And so I'm spreading that word. And that's one thing as podcasters.
Love it, man.
We got to remember, listen to what your podcast is telling you.
Yeah, I like that, right? It will, what is it? The line from the movie is, if you build it, they will come, right? I don't know what the podcast equivalent of that is. Yeah.
That's all the time we have for today. Head over and check out our website, thebceshow.com, where you can subscribe to the email list and contact us. But remember to leave us a rate and review. Helps the podcast with that pesky algorithm. Thanks for listening, y'all.